such, you know. Yeah,
it is, and there's a really great documentary that's kind of recent called Grizzly Man that I'd recommend to anybody interested in Herzog, where like it's a documentary about a guy who lives among grizzlies in Alaska, and eventually, well, I won't say what happens, but the conclusion that Herzog comes to at the end of the film is that man was not meant to be this close to nature, and man was not meant to be this close to animals.
Well, even in the clip you took in your short of it's from A Burden of Dreams, which is about the making of Fitzcarraldo, right? And he's talking about the jungle, right? He's like, this all I see is murder. Right?
Yeah.
It's just like, it's like beautiful. You know?
I also want to add that like people say that like he has no irony or that he's like super serious. He has a very good sense of humor.
Yes.
And I think what he has that's different from not having a sense of irony is that he's always had a very good sense of the absurd.
Yes.
And I think he's fully aware of the humor that his persona carries and the humor in his films. He's super aware that, like David Lynch was aware of the absurd, where it's kind of like, it gets back to this kind of like the nature of something is absurd. It's funny no matter what. It's not the same as like slipping on a banana peel, but it's kind of like there's some poetry to the humor of it.
But you can see that even in this movie in his visual storytelling. You know, there's times when he holds on someone's face for too long, right? And it's like, is he doing that to arrive at a more true moment of what it's like to look at this person in this room?
Yeah.
But for us, our audience reaction is to laugh because it feels unnatural, right?
Right.
So, you know, I mean, and there's many moments like that in that film.
I think that in particular is kind of like a filmmaking trope or a technique. Like it's something that we talked about when I got my MFA, was that this idea of you can get an unguarded moment from someone if you simply roll on their face and don't give them anything to think about. Or you get kind of like, again, it's that truth.
Silence.
Right, like there's some kind of truth that you can get to. I feel like with this film in particular, the scientists were not that comfortable, which made it funnier.
Yes, right.
Whereas some of his earlier films, it's a little more effective and poetic because somebody will just be in front of the camera and you can kind of watch their emotions on their face.
It's interesting you talked about Errol Morris and his relationship to Herzog, because I think another filmmaker who is trying to arrive at truths, right? Like Errol Morris has some science documentaries or some, you know, like he did the one about Stephen Hawking, and what's notable in that, in my opinion, or funny about it, is he shows the scientists, you know, the same way Werner Herzog does in this, their testimonial to the camera, but in that one, he's fabricated the entire room that they're in. So it looks like they're in their office, but it's actually an office on a soundstage that he recreated. And it's like, what is the nature of like getting at the truth for that? And or like even in The Thin Blue Line, right? He gives you, everyone's giving their, you know, Thin Blue Line is a documentary about a crime, and so he shows you the crime happening from each person's perspective of the crime, kind of Rashomon style. He recreates these, you know, the timeline of the crime to see which is more credible, right? To see which one is more true. So it seems to be there's like at least that they are both in search of truth in that way with their filmmaking.
Yes, and Errol Morris, again, is also a really controversial filmmaker, and Thin Blue Line is a really controversial film for a lot of people. On the one hand, you can watch it and you feel like that you get it in a sense, that you really understand the truth of it. And I would say that in this audience today, it's similar to the moment where they had that split screen where you show the man with Parkinson's before and after the surgery. And I could hear in the audience, people were audibly gasping, and like it was so illustrated, so effective for everybody that this was real. Like they could see the difference. But it's a manipulation, of course. And there's something about the split screen that is kind of like undoubtable for so many people. Like, oh, it's the composition was exactly the same. He wore the same outfit. The lighting was the same. It's like so effective. But you also kind of have to be aware that there is an element of trickery and manipulation to it as well. And it's that's what filmmaking has always been, whether it's narrative or documentary.
Absolutely. I mean, you're only seeing what the filmmaker wants you to see at any given moment. And so because of that, they can direct your attention and even within the shot, like certain elements on the screen.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you may only get those things as opposed to what you're saying about the cinema verite, where it's like, we just show in reality, it's going to be a truer thing, you know.
And if you're talking about like cinema verite in the 60s, like you can clearly see, okay, that person was definitely shot on camera.
Right.
They are dead. That definitely happened. But if you're looking for a truth that's beyond just what happened, then it's more kind of malleable.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're almost out of time. Do you have any final thoughts about?
Yeah. So, can we take questions, or is that?
Oh yeah. Does anybody want to contribute? Anybody have any discussion topics? I mean, any Herzog fans that you want to talk about films you loved of his, or anything like that, or any questions?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Maybe for both of you, do you have a favorite narrative film of his, and then also documentary? So, two favorites.
Yeah, my favorite Herzog movie is called Stroszek, and it's from 1976. It's a movie about these three Germans who moved to America in search of a better life and kind of what they encounter. And it's like, I think it's his best movie, and it's one of his easiest to swallow as well. It's very funny and absurd, and it's got like some imagery that you might recognize actually if you saw it. So I'd say that one.
Yeah, for as far as narrative, I mean, I love Fitzcarraldo. I think it's like a really beautiful movie. And then, you know, if you watch that in companion with the making of the documentary, The Burden of Dreams, and you see that he, like, you know, again, it's about this like truth thing, because he's telling this story that's a real thing of this guy who moved this boat across the Amazon, and then in doing that, he himself had to move a boat across the Amazon. So it's like he just redid everything in Fitzcarraldo. And then I would say, as far as his documentaries, like, he's been coming out with so many. He's kind of exclusively a documentarian now. And I mean, Grizzly Man is a great one. But there was one a few years ago, I can't remember the name of it, but it's about volcanoes and volcano scientists. That one is awesome.
The documentary I'd recommend is called Lessons of Darkness, and it was made during the Gulf War in 1991. And that's another super controversial one. It was nominated for an Oscar, but that one is about the oil fires that were burning in Kuwait. And Herzog just totally abstracts what was actually happening, turns it into, again, his like poetic thing. Like he plays like Wagner music with all these like helicopter shots going over the fires, and he does things that are just totally outrageous by like there's a scene where, this isn't really spoiling it or anything, but like there's a scene where you're on the ground with these like oil wells that are exploding, and one of the things that the people who are trying to stop that are trying to do is you have to temporarily light it on fire, and for what reason I can't explain, but it kind of extinguishes the blaze if you do it for like a split second. So there's a scene where somebody throws a flame onto a burning oil well, and the fire starts all over again, and Herzog on the soundtrack says, "Man's lust for fire is unquenched, and he must start it all over again for his own amusement," which isn't what was happening at all. But that's a really good movie too.
Yeah, and I think, you know, like a final point, like you mentioned David Lynch, I think as those two filmmakers got older, you know, David Lynch sadly passed away, but as those two filmmakers got older, they're embracing of the absurdity of reality, like, you know, and these like funny lines that we all know of Herzog's that make their way into memes and stuff. Like, I think both of them kind of arrived at kind of as older filmmakers, just a real technical mastery of absurdism.
Yeah,
you know, for sure.
My favorite quote of Herzog's is it has to do with Stroszek, because there's a scene in the film where they go to this abandoned amusement park in North Carolina, and there's a chicken that's in a cage that's like that dances when you feed it a quarter. And so when they were filming that movie, Herzog was obsessed with this chicken, and his crew were all like, "Why are you filming the chicken? Like, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to participate." So he filmed the chicken by himself, and he says about that scene, "When I saw the dancing chicken, I knew I would create a great metaphor." For what, I don't know.
Well, thank you, Philip. Do you want to say where people can find you online or anything?
You can find, I have a YouTube channel. It's my name, which is Philip Joseph Brubaker, and I post a lot of video essays and criticism of movies and original content. So
Awesome.
Yeah, check it out.
Well, thank you, Philip. Thank you all
Thanks
for
for staying.
staying.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. I hope you like the movie. Thanks, everybody.
Herzog impressions. I'm so glad I got to